The Forgotten Realms is a vast world full of adventure and magic. But what happens when a group of adventurers gets lost in the mist? That's exactly what happened to our heroes in this epic tale from our Aventura. The company consisted of 3 warriors, a thief, a wizard, and a cleric. They were hired by a wealthy merchant named Eldrin to escort him to the city of Lut. Along the way, they had to cross the Sea of Swords, but unfortunately, they ran into a nasty storm. The waves were crashing and the wind was howling, making it impossible to see through the thick fog that had rolled in. Suddenly, lightning flashed and thunder roared, illuminating the angry face of a giant squid monster with tentacles as thick as tree trunks. The party fought bravely against the kraken, but even their combined strength wasn't enough to defeat such a powerful foe. Just as all hope seemed lost, the wizard cast a powerful spell, banishing the creature back into the swirling mists from whence it came. But in doing so, he also caused the mists to become even thicker, obscuring their vision and making it impossible for them to navigate. As the storm raged on, the heroes knew that they were in grave danger. They were now lost in the Sea of Swords, surrounded by monstrous creatures and deadly magic. With their supplies dwindling and their hope fading fast, they had to find a way out of the mists before it was too late. But how could they escape an endless sea of fog? What dangers would they face along the way? And what secrets did the mists hold? As the heroes struggled to find their way out of the Sea of Swords, they soon realized that they were not alone. Lurking in the mists were all kinds of dangerous creatures, from giant spiders to ghostly apparitions. But the most terrifying of all were the mind flayers. These strange, other-dimensional beings had the ability to control the minds of their victims, turning them into mindless slaves. The heroes had to use all their strength and cunning to fight off the mind flayers and their minions, but they were slowly becoming desperate. The mists were becoming thicker and the creatures more numerous. It seemed as though they were being Then suddenly, through the swirling fog, they saw a light. Could it be a way out of the mists? Or was it just another trap? To make matters worse, their supplies were beginning to run low, and the constant threat of attack from unseen predators was wearing on their nerves. Tensions began to rise within the group as the weight of their situation became clear. They needed to find a way out of the Sea of Swords quickly before their supplies ran out, or they were captured by one of the many dangers that lurked in the mist. After several days of battling creatures and searching for a way out, the party finally spotted something in the distance. At first, they couldn't tell what it was, but as they got closer, they realized it was a small island. It was covered in dense forests, and the only sign of life was a small hut near the shore. The party decided to make their way to the island, hoping that they could find shelter there and maybe even some food. When they arrived at the hut, they knocked on the door and waited. Soon, an old woman opened it and let them in. She was kind enough to offer them food and drink, and they told her about their ordeal. The woman listened patiently, and then she told them that she might be able to help them. She led them to a bookshelf and told them to look for a book on the history of the area. The heroes searched the shelves, but it seemed like every book was in a language they didn't understand. Finally, the wizard noticed a small inscription on the back of one of the books. It was written in a language he recognized, and it read, "The past is never truly gone." He thought for a moment and then realized what he had to do. He took the book and walked over to a nearby table. On the table was an old crystal ball. The wizard placed the book on the table and suddenly the room filled with a bright light. When the light faded, the heroes looked around in amazement. The bookshelf and the crystal ball were gone, and in their place was a map. The map showed the Sea of Swords, but it also showed a small island in the center of the sea. The island was uncharted, and it wasn't there when they entered the hut. The old woman explained that the island was the key to escaping the Sea of Swords. It was a place where the mists were thin and they could find a way out. The heroes thanked the woman for her help and set off towards the island. When they arrived, they found a small beach with a cave on one side. As they explored the cave, they discovered a staircase that led down into the darkness. At the bottom of the stairs, they found a small room with a single door. The door was made of solid stone and it was locked. The wizard searched the room, but he couldn't find a key anywhere. Just as he was about to give up, he noticed a small hole in the wall. He put his hand through the hole and felt around until he found a lever. He pulled the lever and the door creaked open. Behind the door was a narrow passageway that led deeper into the island. The heroes walked through the passage until they reached a large chamber. In the center of the chamber was a pedestal, and on the pedestal was a staff. The staff was made of pure white crystal and it pulsed with magical energy. As soon as the heroes saw the staff, They knew it was the key to escaping the Sea of Swords. The staff was so powerful that it could pierce the mists and allow them to escape. The wizard reached out to take the staff, but suddenly the room began to shake. The walls rumbled and the heroes braced themselves for an attack. But instead of an attack, the island itself seemed to be coming alive. The ground cracked and the ceiling began to collapse. The heroes knew they had to get out of the chamber fast, or they would be trapped forever. They ran for the exit, but the passageway had collapsed. They were trapped inside the island with no way out. The heroes huddled together as the island shook and groaned around them. The staff lay abandoned on the pedestal, its magical energy pulsing faintly in the flickering torchlight. The heroes knew that their only hope of escape lay in that staff. They had to find a way to activate it before the island collapsed and buried them alive. As the ceiling continued to crumble above them, the cleric remembered the old woman's words. The past is never truly gone. Could there be something in the island's history that could help them? Searching frantically in the rubble, he discovered a small inscription on one of the fallen stones. It spoke of an ancient ritual that could be performed with the Staff of Light to banish the darkness and bring forth the dawn. The warrior, ever practical, asked if there was a simpler way to put this thing back in its pedestal. But the wizard's eyes, gleaming with excitement, saw an opportunity to learn more about this forgotten magic. He suggested they try to activate the staff. The warrior and the thief exchanged uneasy glances. They trusted the wizard's power, but were wary of meddling with forces they didn't fully understand. Still, with the island crumbling around them, they had little choice but to hope for the best and follow the wizard's lead. Working quickly, the wizard placed the staff back onto the pedestal. Its faint glow suddenly intensified, bathing the chamber in a brilliant light. As the light grew brighter, the ceiling shook violently and dust rained down from the crumbling roof. The heroes shielded their eyes, bracing for the inevitable collapse. But instead of total darkness, a blinding light erupted, filling the chamber and pushing back the shadows. As the light faded, the heroes cautiously lowered their shields, revealing a sight that took their breath away. The chamber was no longer a dark, dank prison, but a place of breathtaking beauty. Light streamed through a newly formed opening in the ceiling, illuminating a sky filled with stars. Vines and flowers, unknown and beautiful, sprouted from the cracks in the stone floor, transforming the once oppressive space into a magical grotto. The air was sweet with the scent of blossoms, and the sound of birdsong echoed through the opening, carrying with it the promise of freedom. The heroes had not only escaped the island, but found a new appreciation for the power of light and the resilience of hope in the face of overwhelming darkness.